I've made some bad life choices lately.
Is it related to the 15 minutes it took you to set up your audio for this recording?
It didn't take me 15 minutes.
Okay, maybe 10.
Took me probably right. Yeah. But I have a good reason for that.
I'm listening.
I think we talked about this at some point or another, but I decided Friday afternoon that I was going to upgrade my gaming computer to Windows 11.
Oh, we have not talked about this. We talked about, I asked you if you had Windows 11 and I complained about aggressive marketing for Windows 11, but I have not upgraded yet. And I didn't know that you had either.
I decided to on a whim on Friday. There was, I don't know, there was just something that kind of itched me the right way, and I decided to go for it. So I actually, this is interesting to us because we have almost the exact same kind of motherboard and CPU setup. I had to go into the BIOS, I had to update my BIOS. I had to enable TPM. I had to do that whole like rigmarole to get it Windows 11 compliant.
Oh, okay. This is good notes for me because I'm probably not that far behind you on the Windows 11 train.
Yeah. So our motherboard and CPU are like TPM capable, which is like the secure boot, whatever. I don't even know what it does.
Trusted platform module.
Windows 11 requires it. Our motherboard and CPU are capable of this, but when they came out, when we bought them, it wasn't capable, or it wasn't enabled, right? Like the hardware was technically capable of it, but it was never like enabled. I don't know. So you have to update your BIOS to get the latest BIOS version on your motherboard, and then go in and enable TPM and all that good stuff. Then restart. Then when you run like the "Am I Windows 11 ready?" or whatever, it will say yes. I then had further problems where the PC health check, which is actually what runs the "Are you ready for Windows 11" check, said yes, you're ready, but the Windows Update tool said no, you're not ready. Go see PC health check on why.
Huh. Okay.
So then I had to download the custom installer for Windows 11, which is just, it's just a link, right? You have to go. I just searched it, and a lot of people were having this problem. They're like, just click here. It's download from Microsoft. And it essentially is the Windows 11 installer that is separate from the Windows Update tool that's already built into your computer. That worked like a charm. Nothing was really a problem except for a lot of the settings got reset. So that's why I was having so much trouble with audio at the beginning of the show, because all of my like default audio devices were reset. Now, get this. This is the best part of this entire story, because it shows just how much of not great Windows is. I go into the new Windows 11 sound settings, right? And I set my default devices. Cool. Everything's awesome. There's no way to set, like, as far as I can understand, the default communication devices, which are different than the default devices for audio, right? One kind of plays your music and your games and all of that, and one you can set separately to do your audio recording and your like voice playback, right? Your Discord or whatever. It's your default communication device. Well, as far as I can tell, there's no way to set those. And when I'm here talking to you on Discord, or I'm getting ready to record a podcast, like the thing that's actually recording my voice is very important to set. And I could not figure out. So what did I have to do? I had to go find the dialogue. That's the old, like, not Windows 10 dialogue. It's the old Windows XP sound dialogue, like the window to pop up.
Which I think is actually the Windows 98 dialogue, basically.
Oh, God. It's just why... There's just like some of the settings, and you know what? Apple is having this problem too, like recently, right? With their latest operating system, is the settings app is not feature complete.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it just drives me nuts, where you have to like fall back onto old methods. And can you imagine trying to explain this to someone that like didn't go to school for, like, I just like what? Anyway, here I am. A little while later, I think I'm good to go. Windows 11 so far has been pretty good. It's been fine. There are some features that are kind of cool. I've immediately adopted the center taskbar thing. Love it. That's great.
That's very Mac-like, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more docky than taskbar. But I don't know. In general, I'm happy with the change. There's some things that are kind of nice, and I haven't had any actual like functional problems yet, except for the sound. So yeah, no, good.
I'm going to let you like give it a week, and then I will probably upgrade as well.
Yeah, maybe longer.
Because I've been seeing some more people that have Windows 11, and every time I see somebody with that little center taskbar thing, it really kind of makes me want to upgrade for no particular good reason, but it's just kind of a FOMO thing.
I have it on my laptop that I use for work. It's fine. You barely notice a difference. The thing, like, I don't understand why. I don't really understand the differences. Like it seems the same thing to me. I don't know. It so far it has felt like a completely cosmetic change.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it mostly is.
I'll give you an update in a couple weeks.
Welcome back to Pride and Accomplishment. I'm Chris.
And I'm Jason. This is episode 101. I didn't know how to say that, Chris. I didn't know how to say that number. Like, is it 101? Is it 101? Is it 100? I don't like. Good problem to have.
Yes, very good problem. We're not going to belabor the point, but it's exciting to be in the hundreds here. Welcome to 101.
Season 2 is upon us.
Yes, Dragonflight Season 2 has come out in the intervening weeks since we were celebrating our 100th episode, and then the previous episode was just on the beginning of Season 2, so now we are in full swing. The new raid is out, the new dungeons are out, everybody is doing all the new content, and we wanted to check in because that was actually a big question mark for Jason and me, but mostly Jason, for how things were going to go on the season rollover. So how's it going?
It's been interesting. I have shifted quite a bit in the last, I think this is week 3, right? We're in, or by the time this episode has come out, it'll be week 4, I think. It'll be like mid-week 4 on the Thursday that it comes out. But week 3 of the actual dungeons. So we had kind of like a week gap, I'll call it, where like season 1 was over, but season 2 hadn't started yet. And then season 2 kind of got into full swing with the raid and the mythics and all that. And I will say I was I want to say I was slow on the uptake, but I think every week so far I've done 8 mythic dungeons. It's just been a weird adjustment for me getting into the way gear works. I really, really like the upgrade system, but it has been a bit of a task, I will say, to really like sit down and be like, okay, what do I have to do right now?
Yeah, I've definitely noticed the same thing where I am not up to date on all of the weekly things. Like I just yesterday, I think, actually unlocked kind of the new reputation faction, the Loam Niffin. I barely had them updated for the first like week or two, and that was partly because of like real life stuff, and I wasn't playing as much, wasn't hitting it really hard, but I was definitely missing on some kind of big things that were the headline features of the patch, but they weren't like gear things. They were kind of more story things, but then that leads to gear. So I was a little bit like, oh, I don't have, this thing that you can use to get more upgrade materials and stuff like that. I hadn't done it. And I think I'm somewhere in the middle of it because like, you get on to play WoW and then like people show up and they're like, hey, you want to do keys? And you're like, yeah, I want to do keys. And then you forget to do all the kind of like, I don't know, single player MMO things of WoW, right? All of the kind of individual activities.
Yeah, that's a really good way to say it, I think. I think that boils down to a lot of what I was feeling. Because when the new season starts, you get new story, you get a lot of new things. And right away, if you don't do those single player things in that week gap I was talking about, where like season 1's over, season 2 hasn't started, if you don't get those single player story things done in that week, everyone's excited about this new season. Everyone wants to run keys. Everyone, like is jump started a lot faster in season 2 than season 1 because everyone's already level 70, right? So there's no single player time that's kind of occurring before everyone gets into the weekly grind of mythics and raids and all of that, right? There was a very large buffer, both because we were new to WoW, but also because not everyone's 70 right away. Everyone kind of gets to max level at their own pace, so there's like time to absorb all of that stuff. Whereas this time it's like, here it is, go. And that can be a little overwhelming particularly because you need to do a lot of those single player story things. But every time anyone gets on, everyone's just like, hey, you want to do a key? Or, hey, it's raid time. Or, like, it's just, there's no time to absorb. There's not as much time to absorb any of the changes that occurred. The one thing I do want to note that I have definitely noticed so far is I was very much getting bored of the dungeons last season. It's just you're doing the same 8 dungeons, right? Every week, all the time. And it has been extremely refreshing to get a new set of 8 dungeons this season. I don't know how you did it last expansion, where it was the
last
same
5 expansions,
8 dungeons, the entire expansion. What they have decided to do here, where they go 4 from the current expansion and 4 from previous expansions, and then the next season, essentially season 2 now, they have changed the 4. There are 8 dungeons in the whole expansion. They've changed which 4 they're picking for the pool in the current expansion. So they've rotated to essentially the other 4 that weren't in season 1. And they're choosing 4 more from non-Dragonflight, kind of expansion timelines. It has kept it extremely fresh. There have been some, and the other thing that they're doing that I really enjoy is the dungeons that they're pulling out of old content. They are, I don't want to call them like completely redoing them. They're not completely refreshing them, but they're like addressing the things that people didn't like about them, like the annoying pieces of them. And they're making them actually fun dungeons, right? They've made some changes to Freehold. They've made some changes to Underrot that like still make them tough dungeons, still make them good dungeons, that are, well designed and all of that. But they've gotten rid of a lot of the annoying things that made people hate them. And that has been super nice. Like I can't even point them out, but they're good dungeons to do. They're fun dungeons to do. They fit the style of the play and what everyone is doing now. And I don't know, it just feels very, very refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, I played a couple of these dungeons. Underrot and Freehold were from Battle for Azeroth, which I played when it was current. And it's been really nice to see those back in the rotation. Like, and be like, oh, I remember these. Oh, yeah, I remember this guy was really hard. Oh, yeah, this was a pain. Like, those things are really fun to kind of come back to for someone who's been playing for a while. But to your point about it being fresh, we do have these new dungeons. It is a little bit of a like total reset though, because the new dungeons are hard, like compared to the ones that we had really well practiced. Like, I don't know that they're like actually easier or harder than the ones that they're replacing, but they feel a lot harder because they're new and we don't have kind of the autopilot for at least like the medium level keys that we're doing at this point.
Yeah, you really start to appreciate how many times you did those dungeons. We were talking to some friends recently and just saying like, listen, like the entire basis of Mythic Plus dungeoning is repetition. Do them over and over and over again, right? And eventually they will become kind of second nature. You will know what you need to dodge. You will know what you need to not stand in front of. You will know what you need to interrupt. Not because you've read and researched and studied, which I tend to do, but because you've done them so many times, right? You start to get just into the groove, and season 2 has yanked that out from underneath us, right? They've taken these dungeons, which, I mean, to my earlier point, has made them boring, right? Has made them just kind of something that you didn't really need to pay attention to, and has shifted them to, or has shifted all of that to a new set of enemies, a new set of dungeons, and has reset that to say, listen, I know you knew those dungeons really, really well. I wouldn't agree with you that these are harder. I don't know that I feel that so much. But they're definitely, we are definitely less experienced at them. And you start to feel that around a certain point with the difficulty. We were pushing 17, 18s, 19s earlier, and that has a little bit to do with gear score, but also we just, like, we're still doing dungeons even today, right? Where we're just like, we have no idea what killed us. We don't know what killed us. And that just, I don't know. It's kind of fun. I'm okay with it. We're still timing them, so like they're still good. They're still, we're still learning. And that has definitely been a very nice reset, a very welcome, for me at least, reset.
It's been funny to me how quickly, though, we have jumped right back into it, because we were very, shall we say, cautious coming into season 1 in terms of like we were doing low, like single digit keys, like, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kind of keys for the first several weeks that we were doing mythics, I think. And like I was kind of pushing like, let's do 10s, let's do 11s, let's do 10s, come on, let's go. And you were kind of like, I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna let it go. Like I'm gonna figure this out, and which is fair. I mean, you were certainly coming in new to the game, but now we're like doing minimum 11s for most things at this point, and it's week 2 of the season.
I think there's a little column A, little column B to that. So the one thing that they did this season that I think has been different than previous season shifts, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, but based on my understanding, previously when it went from season 1 to season 2 or similarly, they would decrement your highest key by 5. So if you were running 20s, you'd be running 15s.
I think it was like 3 actually.
Okay. So they decrement it by a relatively small number, right? This time, I think primarily because they were brand new dungeons, right? The like 8 dungeons that Mythic Plus, or at least 4 of them that Mythic Plus had never seen before, and 4 of them that were refreshed from previous expansions. Because the dungeon pool changed, they decided to decrement keys by 10. Mm-hmm. So someone like me that has never done Mythic Plus dungeoning before thinks in my mind, when I see a decrement by 10, I think to myself, oh, a 20 is now a 10, right? So I just get in my mind, and I think a lot of people that have not played before get in their mind, oh, if I was doing 15s before, I should be doing 5s now. When in reality, the only reason they decremented by 10 instead of 3 or 5 is because it was a new dungeon pool. So really, we were doing 18s before. Really, we were timing 18s before. We should be running 13s, 14s, 15s, really, because it decremented by 3 to 5. And that's where we are. After a week or two of just kind of learning the dungeons a little bit, that's where we are. That's what we're doing. And I think that was a shift for me, because I really in my head thought, oh my gosh, we were doing 18s before. We should be doing 6, 7, 8s because they decremented keys by 10. Mm-hmm. But that's not really what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I started off the season with 6 and 7s and 8s, I think, just to like learn the dungeons and kind of feel them out a little bit. But very quickly, you start to realize like, oh, I did an 8 and we plus 3'd it. Okay, yeah. Maybe I should go for like a 10, or an 11.
When you're plus 3ing it, you're just like, these are too easy. Like I'm wasting my time plus 3ing this. I should be doing at least a key or 2 or 3 higher.
Right, exactly.
So you very quickly get back into the. I mean, I'm enjoying the 13s. We literally right before this recording, we did a 13. We timed it by about 30 seconds. That's where we should be. Now. That group was maybe a little weak, but that's the average, right? That's where we should be right now. I think a 13 is probably appropriate for us. 14s we could probably do on certain dungeons. Some are harder than others, but I'm really happy with where we are. I'm really happy with the progress. I really think that I think we're going to get further this season. I think that's evident in just about everything we're doing. I'm honestly really worried that I'm worried that this season will not last the 6 months that season 1 was. Like, what happens after month 4? That's where my worry is now. We're not even close to that. I like, maybe we'll talk about it in 4 months, but that's where my head is right now, is we are doing this a lot faster than we did in season 1 because there was no grind. There was no leveling process. There was, we're not new to the game anymore. How does this last 6 months?
I think it opens up. I mean, I have the same kinds of questions as well, and we'll talk about raids in a minute, and that's kind of a similar question. But I do think that's where it starts to open up, like at the end of the season. Hey, you want to try an ult? You want to do something on another character. You want to bring another class up to speed. Like, you can kind of give yourself a little bit of a reset on that. It's almost like horizontal progression. I don't know.
Whoa.
But you can say, hey, I'd really like to try, a rogue, or I'd really like to try a monk. And yeah, there's a little bit of leveling, tedium built into that. But you can, I suppose, pay for a skip if that's what you want to do. Or you can just say, I'm just going to take this slow and hang out with some friends and get together and, sit in a Discord channel, hang out and level a character kind of mindlessly and just spam some dungeons or whatever. As a activity to do. Or you can say, hey, I'm doing great. We're doing, raids every couple times a week or whatever. And that's what I'm playing for WoW. And now I'm doing something else, right? I mean, like, WoW doesn't have to be the only game you play. It is an option to play other things sometimes.
While I agree with that sentiment, WoW is a game with a subscription fee.
I know.
And while I'm not a huge believer of saying, like, you have to spend X number of hours to make the subscription fee worth it, it is tougher for me to get in and out of a game that has a subscription fee in comparison to one that doesn't. So again, I don't want to belabor this too much because I don't know where we're going to end up in 4 months, 6 months, 8 months. I don't even know if this season's going to last 6 months, right? Do they cut it short? Because by everything we've seen, they are accelerating their patch cycles, right? Like patch 10.0.7 was 1 month before 10.1. Typically they're a little further spaced out, but like the content they released in 10.0.7 was only around for 4 weeks. That's to me crazy.
Yeah, I don't remember when 10.0.5 came out in comparison to 10.07. But I do think those were fairly hot on the heels of each other. And I do want to talk about 10.1.5 also at some point because, I mean, people are already looking ahead at that and they've started to do PTR stuff with the public test realm and the betas essentially for that. And from everything I've seen, it looks amazing. Very excited about it. But I don't know, based on the pace that they're going, we might see that by July at this point, like that 10.1.5. I don't know. And 10.1.7 could be in August, September, and then 10.2 in, I don't know, say October.
Well, I mean, if they want to release the raid right before, the November timeframe, right, that would be 1 year after the expansion comes out. I mean, that's the pace we're on, which is, at least in comparison to the last expansion, just totally different, right? Just absolutely different. I think, based on what we saw last season, PTRs between a 4 and 6 week kind of time frame. So that would put 10.1.5, late June really is where it is. Again, we have no idea. We don't actually know, but that's kind of what I'm guessing right now, which is not a big deal. I mean, 10.1.5, as far as I understand, is not going to bring a whole lot of content, but it is going to bring quite a few kind of balance and class changes.
Yeah. I mean, from a calendar perspective, I was just looking up, on average, they're putting out a new expansion every 2 years, like total. So Dragonflight came out in November of 22. Shadowlands came out in November of 2020. Being on kind of the mid-cycle patch in November of 23, like the second of probably 3 raids, it fits, in the timeline. It makes sense.
Everyone is expecting, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but everyone is expecting the next expansion to be announced at BlizzCon this year.
Oh my gosh, that's so fast. I mean, it's not though. Again, to the point that I just said, it's not, but it feels like everybody's really getting in the swing of things in Dragonflight and to direct the eyes towards the next thing down the road. It just feels so soon.
Got to keep that wheel turning, man.
It's a game with subscription fee. You said it yourself.
I do think, however, you said there were 3 raids in Shadowlands, 3 seasons.
I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to put $1 on the fact that there will be 4. I think they're really trying to stick to a 6-month schedule. From a season perspective, I'm willing to bet that there will be 4 seasons in Dragonflight, every 6 months.
That could be. Yeah. All right. I could see that. Do you think that they would go, so they have 8 dungeons in Dragonflight, to your point. Do you think they would alternate the 4 and go back to the first 4? Or do you think we're getting some mix up of them or some random thing, or I don't know?
I don't know. My guess is that you go back to the original 4. That would be my guess. Again, to keep it fresh, like for me, whatever. I think I would probably prefer to go back to the first 4. The question is, do they go back to the first 8, or do they switch it up with a different 4 that are from previous expansions? Like, do we go back to Halls of, what was called Halls of Valor? Yeah, do we go back to Halls of Valor, or do we go to a completely different dungeon for that like offset of 4? That's the big question for me. I think you're always going to include 4 Dragonflight dungeons, but what are the other 4 going to be?
Yeah, and they do have on their roadmap a mega dungeon coming, like they did with Mechagon in Battle for Azeroth. They had, and I think they did it with another thing in Shadowlands that came out after I stopped playing. But where they put in a big dungeon that has 8 bosses, and then they split that into 2 different Mythic Pluses. So that should probably also help to fill out any sort of roster list of dungeons for Season 3, I would expect.
Yeah, and maybe they do the original 4 Dragonflights plus 2 wings of that mega dungeon plus 2 old ones. I mean, the door's really open there. I have never experienced one of those. You did tell me about that, I don't think, yesterday or so. I would guess that that would get added to the pool, and then it would reduce the number of non-Dragonflight dungeons that are in the pool. Just a guess, though.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I find it amazing that we are in week 4 of Season 2, and we are already talking about what's ahead. I mean, it just goes to show kind of where our mind, like where we are in our journey on World of Warcraft, because if you would have talked to us in week 4 of Dragonflight of Season 1, I still think I can't remember, but I bet I was still trying to find my way. I don't even know if I was 70 by week 4, because we even started late, right? Let alone where we were after 4 weeks. But I mean, you might have started right as the dragon, like the expansion came out, but I certainly didn't.
Right. You waited a couple weeks till you found out that it was actually good.
So just amazing to me where, what week 4 is, I mean, we knew this going in, but just the where we are in our journey after 4 weeks has been very interesting to compare. And I'm interested to compare against, Season 3. Like, how fast are we going to get into it, or are we going to slow down? Like, what is this the norm or what? That has been interesting. I've never experienced this. I've never experienced kind of a season shift. So far I'm pretty happy with it. It's been reinvigorating, and it's been nice. I am interested to see where this falls within the realm of season changeovers.
I don't remember old season changeovers, but this feels normal to me, and it feels good, so I'm happy with it. We'll just keep playing and see how it goes. Now that we've covered dungeons, I did want to kind of jump into our experience with raids. I know that you and I have had a little bit of a split activity, because there's been of the 2 weeks of raids that we've been doing, I've been away for one of the raid nights and you've been away for one of the raid nights. But our group is 8 of 9 normal on the new raid, which is quite good for us being, an AOTC group, but a group that's got a lot of new people, and we have a lot of kind of not turnover, but just additions of new people to the group. And now we're running our Tuesday raid nights are 30 people, which is crazy. It's just so many people. And we're doing really well, and it's going quite well. So I don't know if you have any feelings as the kind of main tank on this, what the new raid is like compared to the old one, but I think it's going well from a DPS perspective. The one note I have is really just about like training or getting into it. We do have a lot of new people. There is a bit of turnover in our group, right? It's not a strict roster, but we have gone. I remember when we started running normals last season, we got like 13, 14 signups. And that was good for us. And we sat around, 13 to 14 people. We got to Raz. We really figured out that like a larger group was better. And, the group started to grow a little bit. And then we got an infusion of people into our group. And now we're worried that we're going to overcap on the 30 people that we can bring. So that has been really, really nice. I think in general, having more people has
smoothed out the curve a little bit, right? Like no one is really carrying, and and the people that maybe are a little less experienced are okay, right? Not every person's individual performance is as important when you have 30 people. So that has been really nice for us. I think that's been very good for our group, because that's the way our group is kind of like. No individual person is super important. It's all about the group. It's all about progress. The one thing that I have noticed in last season versus this season, particularly for raids, is that the explanations have gotten so much easier. There's no more like each individual mechanic, right? It's just like when we go into a new boss that we've never seen before, particularly on normal, right? So everything is brand new. We've never seen the boss before. The explanations used to be, this is every single attack he's going to do. This is what you do for every single attack. Now it's, don't stand in bad. You all know what that looks like. Here's what the special attacks are. Here's the special mechanics that are different than don't stand in bad. And that has been extremely nice, particularly as a main tank and someone explaining the fight and calling the fight. It's been so much easier to say, don't stand in bad. Here's all the special stuff. It just makes the learning and the fighting and the new bosses interesting, because you're only talking about what makes that boss unique. And I think everyone's kind of enjoyed that. It's been really nice to be able to just say, don't stand in bad. And it has made our experience faster and I think more fun.
Yeah, I mean, we are on our Tuesday night. We do 7 bosses in 2 hours with a 10-minute break in the middle. Like, it's a pretty good feat that we're kind of one-shotting all of the things, again, kind of our second time seeing them. And that's been really, really fun to have, like, a group that really gels together, and we're like, yeah, okay, we're knocking these out. We're going for it. Here's the loot. Let's go. And that's been really a nice, like, reset, because we were pushing hard for AOTC with Raz, right? It was one boss for like 2-3 weeks straight, where we was just like, okay, it's raid night. Here we go. We're going to go fight this big purple dragon. Like, we just did that over and over and over again. We got like 15 pulls a night on this boss that has a 10-minute fight timer if you get to the end. Like, it was just a lot of kind of like, not really monotony, but it was just like very like on edge, right? You were just very like, okay, we're going to do this. We got to figure it out. And like, we made progression. We got AOTC. We're very proud of the group, and that's awesome. But now it's like, okay, these bosses are new mechanics. Some of them are a little tricky, but like once you see them once and die to them once, you kind of learn and you don't do that again, and that is good, right? And that has been really nice to just be like, okay, we can succeed at this, and we can, I think this upcoming week as we record, we're going to get normal done. Like, it's going to be done, and that's going to be great. And then we're going to move on to heroics. And then that's where it's going to start to get hard again. I think like we're going to start to get those mechanics that are like, okay, this thing leaves stuff on the ground that stays for the entire rest of the fight. So you better know where you're going to leave that stuff on the ground. Like, that's when you start to get into a lot more positioning is really important. Putting people in the right groups and calling the groups right is important. And those kinds of like the higher pressure, higher stakes kind of fights will start to kick in coming up once we get to heroic. But it's been really nice to have, we're still doing new stuff. We're still working together as a group. Everybody still needs to be there. We're all still working on it. And we've gotten to the final boss, and that's a little progression. But it's been super nice to just kind of have like a chill, but still making progress kind of raid experience. Yeah,
and it's been nice that even that chill experience is worth it for a couple of reasons. One, people need gear, and normal rating is dropping gear that is still appropriate for people, which is really nice. I think we had quickly out-leveled normal last season by the time we got to it, because we got to it later, right? We were doing LFR. We were kind of really getting into it a little late. It's been really nice to do normal and for it to actually matter from a loot drop perspective. But also that raid loot is now upgradable, it's just changed the game. It's changed how valuable running normal raid and how valuable running and getting everyone loot from raid is, because it matters for a long time.
Right. It stays relevant for a while. Absolutely. The upgrading thing also, you drop currency that lets you upgrade your Mythic Plus stuff from doing a raid. So even if you don't need loot from the boss, you can still get flight stones, which are used to upgrade your other stuff that you get from other sources. And I don't know, I think you get some crests as well, which are the other kind of like item that you use to do upgrades.
Yep.
So it's always worth it to come along for a normal raid, even if your character doesn't actually need those drops.
It is amazing to me. It is truly amazing to me from an outsider looking in, to say that finally in Dragonflight Season 2, Blizzard, this company that has been running this, quote, gear grind, gear progression game for literally decades now, has finally nailed like the upgrade path and the feeling of it and all of that. It is amazing to me that we weren't here before, right? Why now? What has happened now that has led us to this point that the entire, from what I understand, the entire community, both brand new players and longtime veteran players, are praising as one of the best upgrading systems that the game has had since launch. I'm really like as a relatively new player, really enjoying it. It seems to be perfect, right? Any content you do is relevant. They all work together. It all leads to, a feeling and a sense of pride and accomplishment because they all kind of interweave. They all work towards the same goal. It all matters, and it all makes you feel stronger. And that has been a really good, positive experience for me.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with the upgrade system, I don't remember if we detailed it, and I'm not going to go into it in depth, but basically different content drops gear that's in one of 4 bands, so you can upgrade your item up to a certain level, and then it kind of caps out. And then if you wanted to go higher, you would need a different drop in the next band up in order to be able to continue upgrading, say that exact same best in slot item. So it encourages you to kind of grow and continue to push a little bit harder, a little bit further. And there's bands that you can say, I need 11s, mythic 11s drop the worm crest that I need to upgrade my stuff that's at my champion gear or whatever. Eventually it becomes, I need 16s so that I can upgrade my heroic gear, my hero gear. It's a really nice, like little, like incremental, like push a little further, just a little bit.
I also like that it allows you to earn your upgrade in your own way, right? Like the two big things this season have been, raid gear last season was not upgradable, right? Whatever it dropped, whatever you got, that's what it was. And if you needed a higher piece, you just needed a new piece. Now it's upgradable just like everything else. But last season, the way that they locked upgrades so that you couldn't upgrade too much too fast, or you couldn't just like run, really easy content over and over and over again to get the upgrade materials, is that they locked your ability to upgrade behind essentially your score, right? Your mythic score. So your Raider IO score, whatever you want to put on, whatever you want to call it. Now, instead of locking it behind a score, just the materials that you need to upgrade your material, to upgrade your gear, the materials you need to upgrade your gear come from that same bands of content, right? Like like you would say, hey, I need this level content to get this level gear, but also I need this band of content to get this level of resource to upgrade. So it has really kind of, I think it has kind of put the power back to like the player to make that decision on what they want to do to get those resources. Whereas before, you were kind of trapped into a system that required you to do certain things to get to a certain score to really do that. It didn't flow well. It didn't kind of gel together. This, I think, really works well with player choice and playing what you enjoy and doing kind of what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it. It has been really nice to me. It's made the progression feel much more fun to me.
I am a little nervous that we're going to top out on gear kind of quickly, and then it's going to feel like there's just nothing left to do. And I'm not sure how that squares with kind of everybody's happy that everything is upgradable and it's fun. But I guess that's Blizzard's problem, and we'll see how we do when we get later in the season.
I honestly wonder if Blizzard is attempting in some way to make it slightly easier to get gear for two reasons. One, they want, I think, again, I don't know what the stats show. I don't know what all of that shows, but I wonder if getting people to play and start more characters, more alts, they are generally, there has been a general trend to be more alt friendly, and now it has been kind of easier to get a character to kind of the max level and kind of get there faster. I think there's a piece of that where they want more alt play. They want more characters playing. It seems to be pushing that direction. The other thing that I'm interested in kind of seeing is I do think it's easier to get better gear this season. It definitely feels easier, or at least, like people are able to kind of do the things that they want to do and make progression easier, right? Like however they choose to do it. With that being said, will that lead to more people running mythic raids? Like, are they pushing more people to get to the highest level content? And I think that's interesting, right? Because they spend a lot of time. We know that they spend a lot of time on mythic level raiding, and there's always been this argument in MMOs on what percentage of the player base plays the hardest content. And I still think race to world first and all of that, it matters, right? Because it's all about getting there fastest and all of that. But after that, like, do the number of people getting to the mythic level raids, does it really drop off a cliff? I don't know, but this seems to indicate we as a guild would never have gotten there. I think. I mean, I'm conjecturing here. I don't know that we would have ever gotten there under the old upgrade style. I don't think it would have happened. I think people would have either burnt out, or they wouldn't have wanted to do it that way, or the way they got gear just really didn't conform to what they wanted to play, and everyone would have kind of teetered out, right? They would have gone to an alt earlier rather than pushing mythics or mythic rating. Sorry. Whereas this season, I think it is completely possible that the way that the gear grind works, the way that the gear upgrade works, the way that it all pushes that direction, the way that it makes alts more friendly, right? The piece that we haven't mentioned about this upgrading is that if you upgrade a piece of gear to a certain level, it becomes cheaper to upgrade that piece of gear again. Say if you get best in slot, it becomes much cheaper to upgrade it on that particular character. It also becomes cheaper to upgrade that piece of gear on all of your alts, right? Now, not as cheap because they're an alt instead of that same character, but it does become cheaper. This game is so alt-friendly now, right? It's so easy to upgrade stuff. It's so easy to push people that direction, and all of that effort, all of that pushing, all of that, lifting people up leads to more people doing mythic raiding. That's what I think.
I'm excited for it because I would actually like to, for the first time ever, try mythic rating, like serious mythic rating, maybe with this season if we get there. Like, I am very excited to try that if we can.
I think we'll get there. I think it'll happen. I don't know if we'll beat Mythic. I don't know if we'll kill the final boss on Mythic, but I think it would be an accomplishment for our guild to even get like 5 out of 9 on Mythic.
Oh, absolutely. I would be very happy with that. I mean, Mythic introduces an entire new set of mechanics, a different set of stuff going on in the bosses. And I think that that challenge would be really interesting and fun. One more side note on WoW. We've talked about a bunch of things, and I did tease 10.1.5 as a thing we would talk about. I don't think we have too much to say about it other than that I am very, very excited that Mage is losing Rune of Power. The thing that makes you stand still and turret stuff is going away for mages, and I'm hoping that it will improve kind of the rotation for mages and the DPS potential so that you don't have to stand exactly where the boss is about to put the swirly, and then you have to move away from your 40% damage buff. That I am so looking forward to, and that's coming in 10.1.5. So whenever that comes, it cannot come soon enough.
I have a lot of things to say about that, but I want to wait until 10.1.5 until it all shakes out. The one sentence I will say about it is I'm very happy to see that Blizzard is not shying away from massive class reworks. I mean, just like the fact that Rune of Power is going away is a very large decision about mages, right? It's been there for a very long time. It's been integral to that class for a long time. I'm very interested in how that all shakes out, because they are not shying away from it. They're not shying away from the fact that it has been a piece of that class for a long time. And them removing it is a very big decision. It sounds like most mages are pretty happy with it. So we'll talk about it again maybe when it comes out, and all of the final details are solved. But it has been an interesting kind of. I don't play mage, but it's been an interesting thing to watch from the outside, kind of saying, "Oh, they're stripping like part of the identity of that class." Which I don't think a lot of mages liked, but still it's a part of that class. So I'm very excited for you.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Chris, you have not been dedicating as much time to World of Warcraft lately in maybe the past, week or so, week and a half.
Yeah, a little bit. That's very true. I'll blame some of that.
Some other thing taking your attention, maybe?
Yeah, a little bit. So Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom came out a week and a half ago or so.
Yeah, just this tiny indie game, right? Like nothing.
Small indie company, yes. Nintendo, that small indie company that sells card games and also the Switch and Zelda and stuff, had come out with Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And I think listeners who have listened to the last 6 months or so of the show would remember that I was not super big on Breath of the Wild, although I did beat it. I did go ahead and, get suckered into the Nintendo Switch Online voucher system to get the game for $50 instead of $70. So that was, my deal hunting aspect of this. And I think I have probably already gotten my $50 worth out of this game, and I'm not even halfway through it.
I have heard nothing but excellent things about this game.
I was shocked to enjoy it, right? I like, that's not true. I kind of towards my end of my Breath of the Wild run started to understand what was going on and like the kind of circle of like weapons that break and then you get new ones and all of that kind of stuff. And so I was like starting to be like, all right, I think I can live with Tears of the Kingdom, and it's more Zelda and I like Zelda and I want to be on the, the FOMO train here, right? I want to be in the conversation when people are playing the game. And I have not at all been disappointed by that decision. And it's been great to kind of be playing the new Zelda game at the same time as all of my friends.
Okay. So, I mean, the big selling point of Tears of the Kingdom has been this building and the contraptions and all of that. Is that like the thing that sets it apart? Like, is that the thing that has really made this experience fun, or has there been more to it than that?
That's been the thing that's probably enabled the most things to be able to be fun. But I would say that basically Nintendo's spending more time in the engine, and not having to make a Wii U version of Tears of the Kingdom has probably also helped a bit in terms of like the level of detail of the world and the amount of stuff that they just have in this world is a lot bigger. And it's not just the building. The building is a huge piece of it. Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. But like, I'm not building, crazy flying machines or whatever yet, right? That's not kind of my thing. I know that we've both seen this one video of somebody that created some like autonomous drone strike thing with laser beams and a flying.
It was very cool.
Something or other. But like, that's not what I'm doing. Like, I'm certainly not there. But what it does do is it gives you this like level of like pragmatism. Like, it feels very sandboxy, but also in a kind of guardrailed way, if that makes sense. Like, it's not Minecraft, go build anything, like put blocks to make stairs up to the sky or whatever. Like, that's not really like practical to do in this game. Sure, you could fuse a bunch of logs together and make some kind of massive giant bridge or something, but like, that's not really the point of any of this stuff. And so there's a little bit of like work smarter, not harder to some of these things. And that feels really good, especially kind of to my engineer brain, where I'm just like, okay, I can solve this problem by, quickly hacking together some little thing. And then the little thing can like fix the problem that I need. You know, can get me from A to B. It can support the billboard that I need to hold up or whatever, right? I don't have to make something that is elegant. I can make something that just works. And that's the thing that all of the reviews talked about in this game was like, you know, you can do 1 + 1 = 2, or you can do 1 + 1 = banana, and the game will reward you equally. And that's a quote from a review. It was either IGN or Kotaku, but it's true though. Like they don't like, you know, sometimes you would think like, oh man, if you build this thing and you use a rocket, you know, powered sled to cross this chasm, right? That's cheating, right? That's not the intended way to do it. So like some games would like make you go back and like use all of the building materials they provided or something. This game, they don't care. It's like, you need to get from A to B. You got to B. We don't really care how you got there. You could have flown there. You could have, you know, tunneled there. You could have climbed up a wall. It just doesn't matter. And that level of flexibility, I guess, like if you are like, nah, I don't really want to fight those guys. I want to go around them, or I want to go over them, or whatever. That's totally valid. And that kind of, I don't know, infinite flexibility of the game is really the selling point there.
So how far into the game, one of the things that I constantly hear is you'll have an objective in mind to, like, when you sit down and start playing, you're like, okay, I'm going to get this thing done. And 8 hours later, you have found that you haven't even started it. Have you found yourself in that kind of situation? And do you know about how far along the main story you are? Like, how is that all playing out for you?
Yeah, so I really started this game as I'm going to do anything that's right in front of me from a story quest perspective. I'll chase that down. But then I have been doing shrines and towers. You know, there were shrines and towers in the first game. There's still shrines and towers. They're a little different, but they are still there. And I kind of have decided that I am going to kind of chase the shrines as much as I can. And that has tended to lead me to the things like just the story stuff. Like I completely stumbled upon the first kind of like village that had a main story quest thing that needed to be solved or whatever. And then I picked that up and I did it, right? That was great. But I wasn't like going there, right? I wasn't like, yes, I will plot my map and I shall, you know, go to the northwest and find the Rito village or whatever. That was not my goal. It was like, I actually like, I don't know, went up to the Sky Islands at some point and came down and on a shrine, and I opened the shrine, and then the shrine is like at the Rito village. I was like, oh, hey, I think this is one of the big story things. Let me go see what's going on here. And then I started the story quest. I did the exact same thing. I've just now done the exact same thing with the Gorons. So if you played the first game, I think there's the same 4 kind of general factions to deal with. And so I'm in the second one, and I've just like fallen on top of it out of nowhere, just by accident, completely. Like I wasn't going for it at all. And so I have really enjoyed that level of, I don't have to do this particular thing. I don't have to be of a certain level or have certain gear or have a certain number of hearts or whatever. And I've really been embracing kind of the, like, I see the thing, I go to the thing, I do the thing. And that's a very kind of, I know coming from me, probably surprising thing to hear. But something about the kind of like things are close enough to you and you can actually run to them that it feels worth doing, that it is good for me. Like I'm liking it.
You have a note here in the show notes that is like, it's like big and it's just a simple line, but for me it's big and bold and glowing and has a neon flashing light on it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you guess which line in the show notes that is?
Weapons still break. So that is still a thing in this game. The weapons do still break, and it's still not super fun when the weapons break, but they did mitigate it. The reviews said it. I didn't believe them, but they kind of did, and it kind of works.
Oh, whoa. That last part of that statement surprised me.
Yeah, so weapons still break, but then they added this fuse activity, like this fuse power, right? So you used to have these powers, and they were on this like weird little like linear selector thing. So you'd hold down a button, and you'd have to like choose left and right. You know, if you had the square bombs or the round bombs or the magnet or the other thing, that's the freeze and time thing, which I literally never used except for the 2 dungeons that required it. Now you have this little radial menu, and one of the things is fuse. And what it lets you do is you can take your sword or your stick or your whatever, and then you can attach basically anything to your sword or your stick or whatever. And that will increase the attack power and sometimes change the properties of the item. It can still break. Again, with the fuse, it can still break. But it makes it so that you don't have to be like, oh yeah, I found this perfect, like, plus 20, sword, and I'm going to use the plus 20 sword, and then, oh no, my plus 20 sword broke, so now I have no plus 20 sword. You can be like, oh, I just got like this plus 5 stick, and I'm going to attach a rock to it, and now it's a plus 15 stick with a rock on it. And they have fancy names for it, but like that, it makes it so that it's just much easier to get a reasonably powerful weapon without having to find the perfect thing in some dungeon or off of some enemy.
Okay. All right. I see that a little bit. Making good weapons more readily available, I think, would have gone a long way, or it probably does go a long way. Because that was the part of the reason that I hated when weapons broke, right? Is like, oh, I don't have a collection of like 15 good weapons. I have like one good weapon that's going to break on my next swing and 10 terrible weapons. So the ability to field craft a good weapon seems appealing.
Right. And I would say, like, you start to understand the building blocks of the system. That's the other thing to this whole thing, is like, it's not, I mean, and I guess Minecraft is like this. I keep comparing it to Minecraft because it's like very sandboxy, but like you have this like set of almost like Lego blocks, right? You have short stick, long stick, big club stick, right? Those are kind of like the base objects. Oh, rusty claymore. Rusty claymores are everywhere. They're all the claymores that are very rusty. Big two-handed swords. And those are kind of your like building blocks of, these are the things I can use as the base. And then you can be like, okay, there's rocks, there's boulders, there's big spiky balls, there's tree logs, there's bokoblin arms, there's like, anything. At that point, it kind of opens up a little bit. But you can start to kind of see like the way that things fit together and be like, okay, I like it when I get a rusty claymore. I like to attach a rock to it so that I get a rock hammer so that I can use that to like knock down breakable rocks or something like that. You start to kind of like in your head, you kind of get these builds of like, these are the things I like. And then you can use that as a like way to make more weapons that fit your style. So, and also like the certain kind of like the fodder enemies drop essentially little blades that you can attach to anything. So you can always kind of upgrade a stick that you find in the wild to make like a spear with a pointy stick on the end, or like a spear with a better pointy stick on the end. Like it just gives you a lot more, again, flexibility. I keep saying flexibility. It is flexible, and it's you start to kind of get in a groove for yourself. And I like that a lot. I haven't yet felt like, oh no, I can't fight this thing because I don't have enough good weapons. That's not come up for the most part in my playthrough so far. I think one of the things that's been particularly nice about this experience, and I mentioned kind of being on the FOMO train, but I feel like I'm in middle school again playing this game. It's crazy. It's a single player game. It has no online component whatsoever. But like all of the people that I talk to that are also playing this game, we're just like swapping little like hints and stories and things, and like, oh, I found this thing. Did you find that thing? Oh, I heard that you can get this thing if you go there. Did you try that? No, I haven't tried that. Like people that are not trying to like totally go full spoiler, right? That are not reading the guides and stuff, but like everybody that's just kind of like organically playing the thing, they're all kind of getting to the same general areas or levels or like, kind of unlocks and things at the same time. And that's been so cool to just be able to be like, hey, have you done this part yet? And then the other person could be like, yeah, I totally did. That was so cool when I had to fight the thing. Like it's just this like magic of the moment of playing this game that I completely missed on Breath of the Wild, which is maybe another reason why I didn't like it. And so I am just, it's so cool. It's just a really funny, like, to be a kid again almost kind of game, because it is a kid's game, right? It's a Nintendo thing. But anyway, it's really cool.
When you started saying those things, I immediately thought of like the days when a new Pokemon game would come out, right? Pokemon
right, yeah.
Gold or whatever for the Game Boy. That's the experience that I remember in those things. I don't know that I played too many story games or single player games that I could kind of share that feeling with, but I do recognize kind of what you're saying there. It's interesting that I think there's a lot of communities that experience these games differently now. I think part of the magic for you has been that you are in a community or a group of friends, right? Whatever you want to call it, that is playing it at a similar pace with a similar amount of outside information coming in, right? Like the group of people that we play with tend to only look up things when they're stuck rather than like watching guides or watching a full playthrough or things like that. So I think it's both been the community that you've kind of cultivated with your friend group, and this game really allowing people to experience it however they want to experience it. So, but that's cool. I do recognize the power of everyone kind of sharing their tidbits of how they've experienced the game. And I mean, has anyone ever said like something to you where you're just like, oh, I have to go do that now? Like that's something that has jumped to the top of my priority list.
I think not yet, but I do have a funny story that I was traveling actually to a wedding for a friend, and we were hanging out before the wedding, and me and this other guy that was there, one of my wife's friend's husbands, was also playing Zelda on the Switch. This was the day after it came out, and we were talking, and we're just kind of like hinting things, trying not to spoil or anything, but just kind of like hinting at different things. We found out that we were at the exact same place, like literally in the map of the world. We were like standing in the same place completely independently. Like we started the game at different times. We started doing things at different times. And we were both like, oh man, how do you get into this thing? How do you do that? And we left the weekend not knowing the answer. Like we didn't know. Neither of us figured it out. Neither of us looked it up, but neither of us figured it out either. So we just kind of let it be. And because like the next day we were like, hey, did you ever figure out how to get in that thing? It's like, no, I didn't. Did you? No, I didn't. And then so I asked another friend of mine when I got home, and he just sent me like the smallest of hints. He was like, okay, this guy doesn't want that thing. That was all he said to me was like, was that. And it's like, that was enough to like kickstart my brain to figure out what to do. And then I figured it out yesterday. Like I figured it out immediately. I was like, oh, okay, got it. Okay, cool. And I'm trying to be very vague here because like, it's a puzzle and it's solutions and all that stuff. I'm trying not to spoil anything, but like that is like the quintessential experience of just like being able to talk to people and get answers without any of us having to like look things up.
Yeah. I mean, you're experiencing the game together. That's cool.
It's just such a foreign concept in this day and age, I think. Like, it just doesn't happen anymore that's the way that things go. Either things are so linear that it's obvious what you're supposed to do next, or it's like things are so open-ended that you have to look stuff up. And something about this, there's just, I mean, maybe it's people are trying really hard not to, or maybe it's, I don't know, whatever. I've been out of the open world game. I didn't play Elden Ring. I didn't play Ghost of Tsushima. Like, I don't know kind of how those things go these days because they're not usually my kind of thing. But this game has been very, very cool. The last thing I want to say about Zelda for now, as I continue to play it, but the last thing to say for now is that I did hear something that they are planning this to be kind of the template for future Zelda games, like this engine, this open world, this kind of full 3D, whatever, which is cool. I just spent the last like half hour raving about this game and how fun it is. But I am also a little sad that they're kind of saying, oh no, the traditional Zelda with dungeons and stuff is not really a thing we're planning to do much of. Like, we're not going to go back and do another kind of Game Boy style Zelda game like fresh, which again, I get it. I understand. But man, could you guys just like take, 2 years instead of 7 years and just like put together some little like handheld experience that's really fun and like bring me back to the Game Boy days of Zelda with little 8 dungeons and go fight the final boss. Like that would be great.
Yeah, I have bad news for you here. If they just keep winning Game of the Year, they're not going to change the formula.
I know. I'm not saying they shouldn't make more of these, but like I'm saying they should do this and they should do another kind of like smaller Zelda game, like do like
I see the power of the end. I see.
Yeah. Yes. And, yes. And here. Put the Tears of the Kingdom, the Breath of the Wild, put those on the 8-year development cycles. Just turn that crank, go for it. But in the meantime, maybe like on the 3-year schedule, let's get like some small little top down kind of fun portable game or something.
I don't know. I think if they tried it, I think they're probably becoming very protective of the Zelda brand at this point. Just because it has certain connotations to it now where, you know, it everything that comes out is heavily scrutinized because it has the word Zelda on it now. So I don't know. I don't think you're going to get what you want. I mean, those things exist in other like stories, like in other lores, right? Like, but I think you're going to be hard pressed to find a Zelda game with that style, that genre, for a while. I hear what you're saying though. I never played those. I don't share that nostalgia with you. I don't know. I've never completed a Zelda game ever. I played a little bit of Breath of the Wild, but I've never experienced any of those older, you know, dungeon crawling, dungeon Zelda games. So I don't really know what you're looking for, but I just, based on what I see here, this is going to be it for a while.
I've tried the games that are, you know, spiritual successors to Zelda, right? People that have made the things that are, you know, those kind of 8-bit or 16-bit kind of attempts at a Zelda type formula, but they just always kind of feel like a knockoff, right? Because they kind of are. And that's the thing why I want Nintendo to like make another like Zelda game. They did a great job with the remake on Link's Awakening, which was a Game Boy game that they remade into a Switch game not too long ago, and that was done by like an outside company, right? They handed that over to some other like porting company, and they did an amazing job with that IP. Like, I would actually, honestly, I would take all the Game Boy Zelda games and all the DS Zelda games and just turn them into Switch games over the next like 2 decades.
I was just about to ask you if you'd be okay with more remakes.
Go for it. I'm here for it. Let's do it.
So about, I don't know, probably half of our community is playing Tears of the Kingdom right now. And like everyone that I know is talking about it. And then the other half is probably playing World of Warcraft Season 2. A lot of you are playing the 2 games that we talked about today. We would love to hear from you. Tell us, tell us about where you are in Tears of the... maybe don't tell us. I don't know. However you play Tears of the Kingdom. But let us know just what you're thinking, what you're playing, how you're feeling. And you can get in contact with us, talk to us, start the conversation by joining our Discord, which you can get to at discord.pnapodcast.com.
If you want to find our older episodes or read our show notes, you can visit our website at pnapodcast.com. That's P, the letter N, the letter A, podcast.com.
If you're enjoying the show, we would love if you could share it with some others that may enjoy it as well.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you next time. Jason, I have tried so hard, and I have succeeded so far in resisting buying a Switch OLED while playing Tears of the Kingdom. But man, is it close.
Do you play it handheld a lot?
Yes, I do actually. Almost, not exclusively, but like very often I do play handheld, yes.
And is it like are you like laying in bed? Or are you like on the couch? Like, is there a TV in front of you while you play it handheld?
Sometimes I'm sitting in a chair not too far from a monitor at my desk. Like in between, like, on like a raid break, right? We've got 10 minutes. Like,
my goodness.
three or four of those. I could do like one temple, like one shrine in that time. It's fine. Pick the thing up, do the thing. But like, really, if I think about how I play the Switch most of the time, like in general at all over the course of the time that I've played the Switch, it's when I travel. We've talked about this in the past on the show. It's when I travel, and then I'm playing in handheld mode almost exclusively.
Is an OLED really going to make that experience that much better? Is that really the piece that you need upgraded?
No, it's not. But like, it would help, like, or at least it would make me feel better. But the screen is a little bigger, right? 6.2 inch versus 7 inch screen for the OLED. The screen is brighter. It has a reasonable kickstand. Not that I care about that at all. Like the kickstand on the OLED is much better. It has better speakers, which is nice for handheld, although I usually play muted for most of the games that I play anyway. But the screen, like brighter screen, better kind of contrast on the screen. I went to the store and looked at them side by side. It is shockingly noticeable. But also, it's the same exact like hardware otherwise in terms of the chip and all of that stuff. So anything performance-wise that is a challenge with any games or anything like that, or any graphicsy stuff, is not going to be better on the OLED, other than the screen is just better.
I mean, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I didn't know that the screen was bigger. That's actually news to me.
It's almost a full inch bigger. Like the text is bigger because it's a bigger screen. Yeah. Maybe that'll solve you. I don't know. I think as soon as you get the OLED, you're just gonna be like, I need more. I just don't think it's gonna make you. I don't think it's gonna satisfy you. I am like day -3 on whatever the next thing after the Switch is. I think like I am very much looking forward to it, especially if it's backwards compatible with Switch games and still runs all of them, which I have no idea if it will be. But I am very, very excited.
Be. They're all just software now. It's not even a hardware thing anymore.
That's true. I hope that we have a new Switch hardware coming out like next year, because this has really kind of proven to me that Nintendo still makes great games, and Nintendo games are great. And they've never been, cutting edge on the technology. But now, like when you have things as grand as Tears of the Kingdom, it's very obvious that like the Switch is kind of old hardware. Like it's, as someone described it in our friend group, like it's amazing that they've gotten it running on what is essentially 7-year-old cell phone hardware for a game the scale of Tears of the Kingdom. It's like, yeah, I mean, that is a technical marvel. And I kudos to Nintendo for that. But guys, like you can fix this. Just make a new Switch.
I mean, what do you think it's even within the realm of possibility that they release one for this holiday season?
I really don't think so, other than they did announce the Switch and release the Switch within like a month of itself. Like the existence of the Switch was confirmed like 6 weeks before you could buy it, which was insane from a marketing perspective, but they did it. So I guess I wouldn't put anything past Nintendo, but I'm kind of thinking like March next year is probably what they're shooting for, just based on where the Switch was, because it was about a March timeframe for the Switch. But new Nintendo hardware would mean new Mario games, new like hopefully maybe a new Mario Kart, who knows? Like that would also be a big kind of development push, revitalization for Nintendo games, first party stuff. So new hardware, please. Let's go.